Our next and final guest of the program, we're going to be talking to Hamilton Nolan, a labor reporter for In These Times magazine. He is he's fantastic. You've really got to follow him on Twitter. You should follow and subscribe to In These Times magazine. In These Times gives free print subscriptions to union members. But if you're a union member, you can probably afford to actually pay for it, and you should, because it's good, and these people do good work. And he had a really good piece last month about organizing in Mississippi that I would encourage everybody to read. But today, In These Times released a kind of a quick op-ed from Hamilton, and so I wanted to bring him on to talk about that. So Hamilton, thanks for joining and taking the time to talk to us tonight. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. So the title of your piece is "Which Side Are You Democrats On?" And I think that really, that really lays out kind of where you're going to be going with this piece. And the gist of it is, right, that Democrats aren't doing they're not doing enough. And so as a labor movement, we should really be more skeptical of the Democrats as an institution. We should, or at least be more skeptical about the prospect of allying ourselves in a formal way with them. I mean, one of the things that really that frustrates me during election time is when we see our unions putting out all this stuff about how Joe Biden is going to be the best president ever. He's going to be, a union president. And I mean, I guess to be fair, he's the most, like you said, he's the most pro-union president that we've had since FDR. But that's like speaking to the problem rather than a compliment of Biden. And, when unions say things like that, I think it takes away from our credibility because our members, I am not stupid. Like, I know that they're politicians and they're not that great, but our unions are acting like they are. And so what was the catalyst for this article? What made you want to lay out the argument that I kind of recited there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is a perpetual issue for the labor movement, and the overarching, the bigger issue, as you say, is like we always have to keep in mind that our power comes from ourselves. I mean, the power of the labor movement comes from organizing workers. That is the source of power of the labor movement. The source of power of the labor movement is not and never has been through electoral politics, Mm-hmm. And it's true that in a lot of cases, and I think for a long time in modern history, what you see is labor leaders leaning too much on electoral politics and not enough on organizing workers. And I mean, what really made me write this piece, even though it's an issue that's been around forever, was a few things happening in quick succession. One was that Barack Obama accepted a $100 million donation from Jeff Bezos, the Barack Obama Foundation, I should say.
Right.
$100 million from Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos to build a plaza named for John Lewis, the recently deceased congressman. And it was just one of those things that, do you think that Barack Obama is not aware of the Amazon union drive last year? He was aware of it. Do you think Barack Obama was not aware that Jeff Bezos is a union buster? He's aware of it. He just doesn't care. It's just a demonstration of where the labor movement sits in the hierarchy of respect of these politicians. Another thing was with the ongoing Starbucks union drive has been a chance for everybody to remember the fact that Hillary Clinton was going to nominate Howard Schultz, the CEO of Starbucks, as her labor secretary.
Yeah.
Howard Schultz last seen going to Buffalo to beg his workers not to unionize,
beg them not to unionize because they work in a concentration camp, and that's why they shouldn't unionize?
Yeah, there were some Holocaust analogies in there that, but I mean, this was like the best this was the good scenario that
right.
the labor movement was going to get had the Democrat won in 2016. So,
right.
I mean, and then, Marty Walsh was down in your neck of the woods in Birmingham and didn't stop by and see the mine workers and actually has not appeared on a picket line during the big strike wave. And it's, so even here in this kind of this most pro-union administration that we've had in many decades, we can't get the labor secretary out on a picket line. It's a very low bar. And so we always have to remind ourselves that, while of course it makes sense that the labor movement is going to support Democratic politicians because they're not out to destroy unions and wipe us from the face of the earth, that's not where our power is ever going to come from.
Now, I will say, I believe that Marty Walsh went to a Kellogg's picket line in October. Was that, or was that not a picket line?
I don't know. Good question. I should check on that. I know that the agriculture secretary went to the John Deere picket line.
Okay. I think,
and I should.
I just
check on Marty Walsh not to slander him.
Yeah, I just looked, and I believe U.S. Secretary of Labor Marty Walsh speaks with Kellogg's workers on strike in Lancaster. So maybe he did or didn't go to the picket line. I don't know. But you're right that he didn't go to the Brookwood picket line, which did surprise me. I was there at both of the events that he was at in Birmingham. And so there was like a luncheon at the RWDSU Union Hall that he spoke at. And there was some nice things that he did there. So he took like 30 minutes and talked to the Amazon workers that happened to be there and told them some stories about what the unions have done for him. And, that was kind of a really cool thing. But the mine workers were told that he was going to be in their neck of the woods, and so they came and they spoke to him, and basically I wasn't privy to the conversation, but they did say that they were able to speak to him, and they said that he said he was going to try to do something, but like you said, the picket line was 30 minutes away. I mean, there was no reason that he couldn't have gone to show some support. And in your piece, you mentioned that this is one of those strikes where, one of those long and drawn out strikes where it's really difficult to end in the favor of the workers without government support, especially when you look at the actual financial calculations that are happening here, because it's owned by multiple, trillion-dollar investment firms, and they have been willing to lose $400 million in revenue. If you look at where they're at now, $44 million in revenue versus where they were 2 years ago, when the price of steel was a lot lower, mind you, they're $400 less than where they were 2 years ago, and they're willing to just sit on that because the thing that they said was they are leveraging their working capital. They're leveraging these other assets, and so if you can leverage trillions of dollars of assets, losing $400 million in 1 year, It's just an investment in the future and having a non-union workforce in the future. And so we need we need politicians who are fighting for us. But as you said, we don't have that in the Democrats, and we need to recognize that we're not going to get that by kneeling before them like we do. We're going to get that by being strong independently and having them kneel before us, basically.
Right. Yeah, we have to build our own power. And I mean, we have to think about where our expectations are as working people and as a labor movement. I mean, we're talking about the most pro-union president in many, many decades. And, we this is what we get from that. I mean, our expectations are in the gutter, and when you look at labor history, in a lot of cases, as you said, these long drawn out strikes, these big industrial strikes, a lot of times the thing that puts workers over the top and allows them to win was when the government weighs in on the side of the workers. And when the government weighs in on the other side, in many cases, the workers lose. So, I mean, this is a clear-cut, tailor-made case, the mine workers strike, for the Biden administration to step in and demonstrate, that commitment to organized labor that gets talked about a lot, but that the actual tangible results are pretty low at this point.
Right. That's exactly right. And, I think what you're talking about is having our priorities in order. And there was an old saying, I think that I even spoke about this last week, that I heard, and I can't remember the exact wording, but it was something about, like, you can lose what you get at the bargaining table at the ballot box. It's something like that. And, like, that's the order that you've got to think about it, I mean, you have to win at the bargaining table before you can really affect change in the ballot box. And that's what we've seen throughout history, and that's what I think we're going to see going forward. We need, like, if Democrats want to prove us wrong, then the stage is there for them to, but they're not.
We just need to organize. We can't ultimately have power for working people when we're only 10% of the country. I mean, the number one thing that you need to do is organize. And then the political power will flow from that, not vice versa.
Right. Hamilton, I appreciate your time. Where can people find you online?
I am a labor reporter for In These Times, so that's inthes.com. You can read the magazine. You can subscribe for a very affordable price, or you can look me up on Twitter at Hamilton Nolan.
Thanks again for your time, Hamilton. I really appreciate it. Hamilton is a really great labor reporter. I really appreciate his work. I try to read it as soon as it comes out, and so that's where we're going to leave y'all with. Organize, and union leaders out there that are listening, if you want to, you should give your PAC money to media projects that are for workers, like In These Times, like Strike Wave, that our friends up in the Northeast do, and even like the Valley Labor Report. That's going to be it for us here on WZZA in Tuscumbia, Muscle Shoals, Alabama. If you missed part of the show, you can find it online on YouTube or anywhere you find your podcast. We are on Twitter and Facebook at the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is Adam Keller, and we will see you next week.